Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CISO Leadership Forum, Cloud Security, AI, and Governance 2025. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. Throughout today's event, you will also have the opportunity to win one of several prizes. So be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules tab of the interface to see how you can earn points. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Robin Smith, Head of Cyber and Information Security, Aston Martin Lagonda. We're really excited to have Robin with us for a keynote presentation titled Embedding Cybersecurity Visibility and Enforcement in the Cloud. Welcome, Robin. Over to you.
Thanks very much and welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending this session. And we're going to have a gallop through a number of really key issues that we're looking at Aston Martin with regard to building visibility in the cloud, driving enforcement, gaining much more insight into the technology and intelligence derived from cloud incidents, and what the future of automation is for cloud response. So it's a short session and there's a lot to get through. But I do like to kind of start with the obvious question, which is, no, that isn't my car, unfortunately. But I do drive a very nice SUV provided by Aston Martin. But I do work for one of those really cool brands that operate globally, that make beautiful machines, and are starting to go through a really major transformation in the way it operates. So Aston Martin is 111 years old, but we're trying to define our mindset around, being a company that embraces technology, a company that is progressive around new ways of working, and a company that can tackle security challenges in an industry that is rife with both espionage and attacks. So cybersecurity to Aston Martin is really important. I say to my staff all the time, the way that we design our brand new DB12 Grand Tourer, the form and function that goes into designing the cars, that sort of design approach should also be redolent in the way that we tackle cybersecurity issues. And for those of you familiar with automotive, you'll understand that cloud services are starting to penetrate every dimension of our value chain. From our R&D department using, Notion and Midjourney for ideation, our procurement services using third parties to help with engineering sites, and our marketing and sales teams using GCP to develop and move forward with our global dealership network. So cloud services have become part of the fabric of the organization rapidly, and they've become part of the fabric of an organization that has really been trying to figure out, how do we make the cloud secure? How do we gain visibility? And how do we intelligently manage the services that are going to help us build and sell cars across the globe? Part of the issue for Aston Martin has been to consider the rapidly increasing presence of cloud solutions from every aspect of the business, to our dealerships, to our customers. We've recently released the Valhalla supercar this week. That meant that our website was attracting a lot of attention. The configurator, and I would recommend you do this, allows you to build your very own custom Aston Martin. You can choose the interiors, choose the colors, choose the wheel hubs. It's good fun, but it does mean that we have both a lot of publicity this week and a lot of web traffic. And the fact that our cloud services have expanded our web presence, the fact that our attack surface has also expanded at the same time. And whilst there has been enormous amount of benefits from the elasticity of cloud services, there's also been a major uptick in the amount of cloud misconfigurations. It's in an architect's, desire that they want to be able to have a very permissive approach to cloud services, when 99% of misconfigurations are occurring in that space where we've been overly permissive. So cloud has impacted the way that we can control and manage our services. Legacy approaches simply do not work with regard to policy enforcement, with regard to deriving intelligence. And at the same time, automotive as a glamorous industry, we're in the F1. If you've seen Drive to Survive, you'll know some of the characters that you see at Aston Martin on a fairly regular basis. But that prestige and that global presence is also drawing a lot of different types of cyber attacks. Ransomware as a service is hitting the manufacturing sector as a whole hard. If you look at some of the statistics from IBM and Ponemon, we're seeing, the manufacturing industry is consistently targeted because of its diverse array of supply, its diverse array of actors, and the fact it's easy to attack some of these smaller organizations who don't have dedicated security teams. So what we need when we're adopting our cloud strategies to recognize the threat profile and recognize the velocity of these attacks. This is just one example I drew from some recent industry analysis, whereby a business email compromise attack, within 28 minutes, there was disruption to the organization. Now, thankfully, this was an instance that was contained, it was remediated, and we derived lots of lessons from it. But across that attack pathway, there were multiple instances where leaked credentials were able to be accessed by cybercriminality. Arctic Wolf were able to deploy protections to reduce that threat. But this is just one vector which are being attacked consistently via our cloud services channels. So within Aston Martin, we wanted to have a very clear threat and risk analysis so we could understand the ever-changing boundaries, the lack of visibility that was emerging from a multi-cloud environment, the fact that social engineering attacks have been used. There are more than 2 million mentions of Aston Martin on the dark web during the last quarter. And that may only relate to the technology we use, but it's a for our board. And we want to kind of be able to understand both the threat arising from that and the way in which we can counter it. And we want to harmonize the way in which on-premise and cloud security operates using automation, using authentication, and using the skills of our highly professional and highly dedicated security teams. And the ultimate objective here is to gain visibility. You can't protect what you can't see. You cannot understand the array of threats if you don't have a clear threat and risk exposure analysis. And that's one of the jumping off points for Aston Martin. So using an approach that fused both protection and prevention with reactive controls, we've started to develop a cloud visibility strategy that enables us to enforce strategy, policy, and standards across the whole of the organization. And whilst we recognize that legacy approaches don't always operate, we do understand that we need to sync our cloud security posture with our organizational risk profile. And using this target operating model that's been developed in consultation with Istari, we've been able to balance both prevention of cloud threats with our ability to react to cloud threats. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. And with the mushrooming services available to us, we wanted to orchestrate our technology to ensure that our security architecture gave us high fidelity security intelligence. It gave us advanced prevention, but it would also move us left into that development pipeline. It won't be a surprise to know that Aston Martin do a lot of internal development. We also have a lot of aging internal applications that support design and delivery of our not just the vehicles, but also our marketing campaigns. But we exist in a digital ecosystem of Kubernetes, Amazon, and various other key services for us. And as we approach our target of becoming, cloud first in 2027, there's a need for us to really understand what do these technologies deliver and how do they need to be complemented by enforcement across the estate. So we've had a great partnership with Microsoft, and they've given us a myriad of tools for cloud network security and threat prevention, but it hasn't always married to really deep understanding of the threats that we should be hunting or a really rich source of intelligence. So we've sought to have a diverse array of cloud intelligence providers so we could synthesize all of the insights emerging from our growing footprint on the cloud. We've had a couple of false starts with cloud security posture management. I won't name names, but we've engaged with some of the industry providers, but we found that there was no ability to deliver a cohesive approach to cloud security posture management for multi-cloud. And I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. Internally, we focus on self-protection and making sure that our custom APIs, our developing LLM presence, we are making sure that the design and delivery and inculcation of security into those products is built in. And we want to continuously assess the threats and make sure that we're adapting our posture using this tooling. Now, it might be that you've had positive experience, and there are lots of in-house tooling from Amazon, from Google, that will give some level of insight of what's going on with login. But our experience of that has been a little bit mixed. So much so that we've actually moved towards a cloud protection platform that will give us much better instant response readiness. It gives us full spectrum detection. It'll allow much quicker correlation and investigation of cloud incidents. It focuses on the resources taken to deliver more visibility and quicker remediation, and to give us a cycle of cloud response that is going to give us the protection and the trust that we need from our services. So partnering with a new firm called Brava, we've been able to integrate this approach to cloud protection with prioritized logging, with a real focus on deriving return on investment for our interventions. So rather than simply responding to cloud incidents and remediating them as a singular activity, we are developing workflows that allow us to measure the potential exposure from an incident, say a business email compromise. We are able to record the time taken, and we are then able to estimate, using factor analysis, the amount of money that the exposure management has saved the organization. And as we go into sort of economically straitened times in the UK and Europe, we're having issues in selling vehicles in China. That's another story. But the issue here is that we're able to kind of gain clear ROI on the impact of our visibility response. And Brava also allows us to integrate across our SIEM, across our search services, and into our DevOps space. And with these integrations, what we're getting is that deep visibility, that intelligence, and those ability to make decisions around our cloud security incidents that we weren't able to take before. Now, it's not perfect. I would say there are still some things missing from this. But the idea of automating our workflows about cloud incident response means that we have machine speed detection and response. We have a ramping down of the exposure that we're facing. And across these integrations, we're starting to go from a reactive cloud incident response perspective to be able to forecast what's going to be hitting the organization going forward. Now, that will never be perfect, but moving from reactive cloud incident response to proactive cloud protection is a big boost for our security strategy. That's the technology stack, but divorcing that from the way in which the organization operates is mistaken. We're trying to build a culture at Aston Martin that understands all the responsibilities around commissioning cloud services, running cloud services, and decommissioning cloud services, because it should happen at some point, requires our staff to have full literacy around authentication, around integration, and around access. Now, I've previously mentioned the fact that when we go into these cloud services, misconfigurations are very common. And the lack of auditing around our organization meant that we found lots and lots of instances where authentication wasn't enforced to an appropriate degree. We have changed that using the intelligence derived from Brava to point out where workflows have malfunctioned, to conduct root cause analysis on cloud incidents. So we've looked at the business email compromise incident. That could have cost us approaching £40,000. Now, maybe that isn't an awful lot, but if we are getting 5 of those a week, that soon aggregates into a fairly significant risk exposure for the organization. So the enforcement derived from the greater visibility that we've got from Brava allows us to ensure that Aston employees are using multi-factor authentication. we're integrating single sign-on, and we're streamlining processes towards automation, whereby we can cut the cost, the time, and the administration impact of ensuring only the right people have access. I mentioned DevOps before. I'm not the biggest fan of DevOps, but we have started to inculcate the notion of DevSecOps within the organization. It's not enough to react to cloud incidents. What we want to do is design them out. And having worked in law enforcement previously, there's lots of successful incidences whereby DevSecOps, designing out crime, thinking like a criminal, you can simulate before you release new cloud services exactly where you might be attacked. We have the concept of purple teaming now, and we partner with SentinelOne, who will conduct very aggressive purple teaming with Aston Martin to really drive out as many design faults as possible at the earliest possible stage. That will never be perfect, and I do believe that having the ability to adapt is just as important as the ability to protect. But by enforcing DevSecOps, we're getting a greater return of our design investments, and we're reducing the number of cyber incidents. Automation is kind of the watchword. We haven't mentioned AI too much, but we are on a very aggressive pathway towards hyper automation around our policy enforcement. So rather than having that kind of human error at the heart of, let's say, 50% of our incidents, by using Kubia, an Israeli startup firm, to design security workflows that are focused on natural language processing, that are easy to comprehend, and that establish clear workflows for the development of security operations, we are reducing the impact of cloud design faults by a factor of about 30% in the last 6 months. Now, that translates into a significant cost saving. And as we start to reduce down instances of human errors, things like not considering specific retention policies, not considering the fact that we may have cloud services in another part of the business, by having hyper automation and by having defined workflows around the development of these services, the design and the delivery of these services, and also the security testing of all cloud instances, we're deriving yet more intelligence that allows us to resolve problems at the first instance rather than repeatedly failing the process. Now, our operating model puts a great premium on protection and prevention, but it's impossible to de-risk these sort of cloud strategies to zero. And one of the important things for us is to learn that if we need to make that adaptation to cloud enforcement, we also need to be able to respond very quickly and with professionalism to any instances of cloud disruption. So a recent instance related to our website, the provider for our Aston Martin website was disrupted by a DDoS attack, and we were getting intelligence that buyers were having real problems getting onto our configurator to design a new car. Now, that, again, is a cost to us and a real risk to the ongoing reputation of the organization. And also, customers will not come back if they think that the website is going to be unreliable. What happened here was we made sure that our incident response was rapid, informed, and focused on immediately resolving the problem, deriving as much insight as possible from the cloud provider via Brava, and making sure that the workflows were updated to ensure protection going forward. Now, incident response is a really important dimension because they're high pressure instances. They tend to garner a lot of retention, and they also, when they go wrong, can be highly disruptive. So the ability to respond to cloud security failures is an important element that we focus on at Aston. We have trained our staff on it. We conduct regular reverse stress tests. And if you haven't conducted a reverse stress test, I would heartily recommend looking into that. That is a tool used by the financial industry whereby they consider what happens in the immediate aftermath of a catastrophic event. I will say that we've been doing some very leisurely testing prior to using reverse stress testing, where we kind of, we would have a desktop approach, we'd involve parts of IT, but generally we wouldn't simulate a real world scenario. Generally, we would pat ourselves on the back and say, I think we're quite well prepared for these sort of incidents. Using a reverse stress test for a cloud security breach can be highly stressful. It can be, there's a lot of questions to ask. It reveals a lot of holes in the cloud security strategy, and it also gives you the time to re-engineer some of the solutions, some of the workflows that are going to support the organization going forward. So I would certainly say reverse stress testing for cloud security instances, well worth your time. The last thing here is that kind of abiding concern within the cybersecurity industry is having good people, making sure that you have cloud literacy within the security team, but also making sure that you have collaboration across various teams within the organization. It's not enough for this sort of hero mentality that some CISOs tend to kind of partake in. I don't agree with that personally. I think it's much better to prevent the problems through good training, good development, and good knowledge transfer. So within Aston Martin, the cybersecurity team is engaged in multiple collaborative partnerships to transfer knowledge around cloud security, to take questions and to answer issues, to help with design, to aid the design team in the adoption of new ways of working without disrupting the need for proper enforcement of cloud standards and cloud services. And through that regular training and education, we are building competency around cloud security that enables much quicker response, cooler heads when there is an issue that's occurring. And we're starting to see elements of self-reporting around cloud breaches. People are coming to us much more to seek advice and guidance around their cloud services posture. We're able to kind of have that professional input. And, security is just one dimension of cloud design, but it's a really important dimension. So a security-first culture at Aston Martin has enabled us to drive through much more awareness of the need for enforcement of standards when it comes to cloud protection. I'm not going to pretend that we have completely solved the puzzle. We are moving towards to be in a cloud-first organization towards 2027. We have had our failures. We've had lots of instances, just as some of our cars, believe it or not, don't always sell so well. Some of our cloud security approaches have not worked well. Our engagement with Amazon, our engagement with Google, they have not yielded the type of cloud protection services that we would have thought. In the event of, we're all running multi-cloud instances, and there are lots of problems around the type of reporting you're getting, the timeliness of it, and the scope of that intelligence. That's been somewhat resolved by having a cloud protection platform that integrates and unifies our approach to cloud security. It allows us to conduct after-action reviews to really aggregate insights around what type of threats are we facing, how likely are they, what are their impact, and having that preventive strategy up front is really good for us. And that design approach, which is part of the DNA of Aston Martin. But we've also learned the lessons through incidents, through disruptions, through problems, and through failures. And it's really important that that is a message that goes through, which is any visibility strategy that you design for your cloud security posture, it needs to also inculcate a response element that unifies incident management, that brings together the key teams, because it's not just the security team, that allows for collaboration and lesson learning. That's an important dimension here, which is it's not enough to de-risk the protective part. You need to be able to respond in an adaptive and agile fashion. And for that, that gives us the security posture where we are more resilient, more able to manage incidents, and looking forward to continuing to leverage the very many benefits of cloud services going forward. Thank you very much for your attention. Happy to take any questions that you might have.
Great. Okay, Robin, here's one from the audience. How can organizations effectively balance performance and security while enhancing visibility in their cloud ecosystems?
That's a great question. I would say that is a question of factor analysis. You want to quantify how impactful your security decisions are. And whilst it's it's a bit of a dark art factor analysis, if people are familiar with Jack Freund and the FAIR methodology, we've started to use that to try and provide a quantitative basis for decisions. So rather than lots of technical people, and I'm not one of those technical people, but my technical people will tend to view all issues as either a 0 or 1 in a very binary fashion. By using factor analysis, you can balance the duty towards security against the operational issues that may kind of you may incur through a decision. So looking up Jack Freud, looking up the FAIR method, I would encourage people even just to get a cursory knowledge of that to help with decision making and quantification.
Great. Here's another one. How can automation and AI driven analytics help organizations detect and respond to security threats in real time?
Yeah, I suppose AI analytics will allow for automated workflows. I'm a big believer in the future is automated. I've talked to Talk and Times about hyper automation, and I believe that AI analytics should be able to be integrated into workflows to trigger real remedial containment actions. Maybe you don't want it doing everything, but the idea is that machine speed attacks need to be defended using machine speed responses. For me, AI analytics is not just about that immediate response, but if you think back to the film Minority Report, some of you guys might have seen that film. That was about this idea of pre-crime forecasting using intelligent analytics in a fashion what was going to happen. And I think as we get into the realm of quantum computing, the speed and velocity of response is only going to get quicker, just as the speed and velocity of attacks is going to get quicker. So I think we need to be going from a reactive footing to a more proactive, anticipatory perspective using analytics.
Great. Here's another one. What metrics or indicators can be used to evaluate the effectiveness of cloud security initiatives and technologies?
I think mean time to respond and mean time to detect, these are very generic trad sort of KPIs. That doesn't mean they're not still valuable, particularly if you haven't been baselining your response to cloud security incidents. There's not much measurement in cybersecurity, or maybe different in the US, but certainly in the UK, it's like a dark art. But what we're starting to see here is even just very banal baseline measurements of it, using a manual workflow, it would take X, and now using an automated incident response workflow, we've reduced that by 20%. In these days where budgets are going to be squeezed, being able to at least speak about the opportunity cost, speak about the reduction in resource taken, that's going to be value to CFOs who are looking at cyber. We've had 10 years of investment in cyber at Aston. What we now need to see is a yield from it. So I would encourage, keep it simple, keep the performance measurement simple, and ask key performance questions. What outcome? How much? What is the target for improvement? Keep it simple and focus on continuous improvement around measurement.
Great. And I think we can squeeze in one more question from the audience. Uh, what practical strategies can organizations adopt to ensure consistent security policy enforcement across multi cloud environments?
You're not going to like this, but I'm going to say it. Be brutal. You have to be brutal. You have to call out failures. You have to call out breaches. You have to call out non-conformities. This idea that we live in this kind of merry, collegiate kind of environment is not true. I think there should be a league table of shame. If someone has, screwed up, they need to know. If someone has breached this cloud security policy, it needs to be raised in a governance forum. There needs to be some enforcement that has got teeth. There's a lot going on. We live in an attention economy. The impact of cloud security standards will only be felt if number one, it yields like massive benefits and savings for the business. Great, that's positive. More likely, you're going to have breaches through negligence and a lack of professionalism. That needs to be called out. I'm by nature a diplomat. It doesn't sound like it, but I am. But even I've been forced into a position which is where there are breaches, there need to be heads on spikes. Not literally, but do you know what I mean? We need that tough approach to enforcement, not a woolly approach. So we're going to start doing it at Aston. Come back to me in a year's time to see how successful that is. I might breach the policy and have to fire myself. Who knows? But hopefully not, because I love my job.
Yeah, hopefully not. Well, thank you again, Robin, for such an incredible keynote. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. For those of you who earned points throughout today's event, an Argyle team member will be following up with the winners in the next couple of weeks. This officially concludes the Argyle CISO Leadership Forum, Cloud Security, AI, and Governance 2025. Thank you again for joining us today and engaging in our content. We look forward to seeing you at our next Argyle Digital Information Technology event soon, which will be our AI Leadership Summit, Revolutionizing Business Strategy with AI on December 19th, 2024. Have a great rest of your day.